Welcome to Beyond the Business Card podcast.
You really need to go 100% into anything you do. You can't just do it with the left hand, basically.
John Von Hofsten is the founder of Home of Performance, HOP, an award-winning digital marketing agency with a strong presence across the GCC. As a driven entrepreneur, he's built HOP by combining strategy, execution, and data science to help businesses achieve real marketing results. Today, we're diving into John's journey on how HOP is shaking up the digital marketing scene in the region.
It's worth the risk trying to aim for that target, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy with, okay, it might not work out, but I want to swing for it. So I'm going to take risks trying to achieve that.
John, welcome to our studio today. Very good to see you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise. I'm really excited about this podcast.
Good, me. Not as excited as I've been, actually. So we know each other. We've got to share a few stories. Having businesses in Dubai. Also, we've both got offices in Colombo and Sri Lanka, which we'll explore.
Yeah.
But the purpose of the podcast today, Beyond the Business Card, is really to understand the person behind the business card. I.e., what led you here? What led you to open up the business? What led you to grow the business? What made you even want to start an agency? So I'd like to just sort of go back, if we can, and just sort of understand your background, what led you to being here today.
Sure. So I'm from Stockholm, Sweden. That's where I grew up and started my career in the agency space. So I studied advertising, and then I started working at an SEO agency. That's when I started working, basically. And I stayed with that agency for a long time in Stockholm. My wife was in London at that time, so we were flying back and forth a lot. So we kind of knew that we wanted to see something else together, and we just ended up deciding on Dubai and came 10 years back, basically, with my same employer at that time. So I kind of convinced them that we needed to set up a business in Dubai because there was a lot of opportunities. They agreed to that. I was lucky that they did. And then kind of just kept going on that route, basically.
Okay, so a bit of intrigue here, because I started my career in the media industry, right? So I worked for 7 years in the communications world. I kind of, in a weird way, I always thought I was going to work in the media industry. I was drawn to it. I think I knew a couple of people that had worked in the industry. It looked very exciting. It looked quite glamorous and sexy from the outside.
Yeah.
You started in media sales, I think it was correct, right? Quite, perhaps not as sexy as you perhaps thought, right?
No, man, it was not sexy at all. It was far from, Don Draper, in Manhattan. It was, so SEO at that time, and the agency was, a sizable SEO agency in Sweden, where I think there were like 100 people. 50% of the employees were sales, right? So at that time, you were selling through cold calling people. It was more like a boiler room than an agency, to be honest. Calling hundreds of companies on a daily basis, and you were actually selling these services directly over the phone, right? So it was very, very far from the glamorous award-winning dinners that we attend today. But it was, I think, probably if I hadn't done that, I would probably not be here today. Because I think it's probably the best school or best training I could have in terms of, if not advertising, definitely entrepreneurship, because it all stems in terms of being able to drive sales and revenues. I mean, if you can't do that, irrespective of what kind of business you're starting, you won't be able to thrive as a business. But then on top of that, since we were working with SEO, obviously I got to know it pretty well. So it was a great school for me in terms of understanding the both, let's say, the business side of it, as well as the technical side of delivering the service I work with today, or one of them at least.
Got you. So I always say you're right. Your first job is like the foundation that's for everything that you end up doing for the rest of your career. And I still remember now. So the business I worked in was a marketing communications agency, and I was in the sales team as well. And
you can imagine.
Yeah. Well, I was sort of drawn to it, as you can imagine. And I just remember my old boss just saying, "It's a numbers game." Now it didn't really resonate with me at the time. But if you ask anyone that's worked with me now, they'll always hear me say, it's a numbers game, and that's it's at the heart of everything I do in
Yeah,
sales.
it's all about the activity, right? Now, obviously, it needs to be quality on top of that, and all of that jazz. But you really learn how to kind of trim your work with KPIs and your numbers if you work with sales. And also, it depends on who you work with. Like if you're lucky, like I was, to have a good leader or good mentorship from the beginning, I think you're well positioned to actually thrive in it. But equally, if you have like, you're unlucky and get to work with terrible bosses or managers early on, I think you get a distaste for it as well. I'm pretty sure that you were lucky to work with some good people early on as well.
Yes.
And that's why you still come back to these learnings you had from that time. So I think that's a big indicator if you will be successful in what you're doing. Just not about the capacity you have. It's also about who you work with and who you learn from, and how you can kind of take that knowledge with you in the future, basically.
Yeah. There's been, I mean, I was quite lucky. You said you were with your first employer for a while. I was also quite lucky. I was with them for 7 years.
Yeah.
And I think looking at a lot of CVs that I get these days, that my team gets these days.
You don't see that.
You don't see it very often.
No.
And and I just want to stress, I suppose, how important that was for me, and sounds like it was for you as well.
I think like it is. If you look at people today, they are like the younger generation. What do you even call them? So I'm millennial, and then you have the Gen Z.
Gen Z,
right? And then our kids is Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
So if you look at the Gen Zs, they do expect things to move much quicker, right? And many of them, when they came out in the workspace, like it was hybrid from the beginning, right? So they are entitled. They feel entitled to way more than I did, at least when I was working. I don't. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's not. I'm not sure. But when I came out and started working, it was very different, at least from how I looked at it. Because when I looked at it, I didn't know that I wanted to at some point have my own business. I did have my own business when I was like 19 years old, and that went terribly bad. I then came into the advertising, and I did understand that, okay, this is definitely something that has a great future. It's a service I can learn and get. It's sellable, it's scalable. But I also kind of realized that I'm 23 years old. I know nothing. And I need to get that knowledge in order to actually build something based on this. So the 10 years that I spent as an employee with 2 different employers, for me, I looked at it like a boot camp, right? So it was an opportunity for me to get paid, and I got well paid while learning. So it's like you go into university, basically, and you get to learn sales, you get to learn marketing, advertising, management, leadership, HR, P&L, all of that stuff. So I just grabbed as much responsibilities as I could.
Yeah.
Like, okay, does anyone want to do this? I raise my hand always.
Yeah.
Promotion up, I want it.
Yeah.
Irrespective if I was ready for it or not, I jumped at everything. And I just tried to suck in as much as I possibly could. Like if I look at many people today, definitely you have that personalities, but like I feel that a lot of people stray away from more responsibilities. It's okay, but why should I do this? It's not in my JD. It's not what we agreed upon. So I feel that there is a lot of people are afraid of looking at it that way today. They want to do exactly what they're supposed to do. They don't want to go outside of that. I'm not sure why people are afraid of that added responsibilities, because obviously it's an opportunity to learn.
I think it's probably the way you're wired, though. It sounds like you were incredibly mature for your age to be able to think like that, to think, to be self-aware, to think it. Because I can tell you when I was 23, 24 and doing pretty well in this agency, actually, I was thinking I should be running this soon. You were very self-aware.
Yeah. To
go, actually, I know nothing, and that's incredibly credible.
Yeah. So, like sales. If you start in sales and you have you're pretty good with people, and you have empathy and you can read between the lines, and usually those are the traits, right, that makes people successful when it comes to sales. And it's something people can pick up pretty quickly. And then as the more you learn, you understand, okay, there's a big world of sales and how it actually works. So you can pick that up pretty quickly. But running a business, not just sales, right? You actually need to deliver something of value as well. And it takes time to build that up. You need to do your 10,000 hours in all these different elements. So for me, it took 10 years to get there. But then when I've done that, it was taking the step to starting was much easier. And I think the success rate is much higher if you've actually gone through those steps, because it's not trial and error, everything. You've actually been through a lot of these situations before as an employee.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like that even in your early years, so you said you were an entrepreneur at 18, 19 as well. Let's just touch on that. So what did you learn from that experience and what was it?
All right. So we had a restaurant. So me and a few friends.
Wow.
Yeah. They were a bit older than I. And at that time I would say like I was very immature, right? So there was a lot of drinking out, partying, and all of that. I was not ready to take any kind of responsibility. Probably one of the reasons why it didn't go well. But I did learn a few things, like show up irrespective of how you feel. If you're hungover, it doesn't matter. You show up at work on time. But that definitely showed me the value of the freedom entrepreneurship gives, and not the freedom of, you still need to show up to work. You still need to work hard. But it's kind of like you set your own pace in a different way. So, and it definitely learned me that the restaurant business is not a business to be in. But even before that, when I was younger, I did organize a lot of parties and events. So I've always been drawn to leading, and I guess taking charge of my own income in some extent.
Okay. So I met quite a few successful entrepreneurs actually who started in the events and party scene, getting a crowd together.
Yeah.
It's it's clearly an interesting place to start. And
it is, yeah.
Restaurants is absolutely brutal, and I think you made the rookie error of getting high on your own supply by the sounds of it.
Exactly. No, very true.
Yeah.
So that was that story, and then I had another business venture. My first business venture here in UAE was a flower shop. I don't know if I told you. So we had a flower shop in Ajman called Dubai Flowers. So it was 99% online. We bought it from a guy from Pakistan who set it up. He made a lot of money selling it to us, me and two friends. And kind of like it didn't go well as well. I sold that at a high loss, but the learning from that, because that I was doing in parallel with my old job. And none of us, we were 3 people, none of us did it like full time. So it's just like, okay, we're smart people, we know marketing, we know finance, all of that. We're going to run the shit out of this, right? And it wasn't like that. It was hard. And you really need to go 100% into anything you do. You can't just do it with the left hand, basically. So I think, and also it's difficult to do business with partners. It can definitely be a big benefit, but there is a lot of challenges to it. So based on that, I understood, okay, I want to do something by myself, because then I'm 100% accountable for everything, and I need to go 100% into it. I cannot do some people, they can do side hustles and all of that. For me, that would be very difficult. I need to be 100% focused on one thing. And that's also why I, when I started my business, it was okay, I need to quit my job. It needs to be all in. I need to have everything to lose if I don't succeed in this, because you need that knife against the throat, in order to really have the motivation to, even on the days when it's tough, like it doesn't matter. You just need to get up. You need to get it done. You cannot really let your feeling for the day impact the success of your business, or life, for that matter as well.
Yeah, I'm completely wired the same, actually. I think if I was kind of earning all right, life was okay. If my car was, if my car was okay, but not the best, if life was just okay, I think that's the most dangerous place to be, actually, because that leaves you in that same spot, and it leaves you being probably quite complacent. I've always been an all or nothing person.
But had you ever I think you drive the same. You have a Maserati.
Yeah,
blue one.
Yeah. White one.
Okay.
Yeah, white and red leather interior.
Okay. So, so both of us have, pretty nice car.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you have a nice house, and you have a house in Sri Lanka and all that. And obviously, you built this up over. It takes time, right? But do you still feel today that, okay, I have everything I need, right? Because I don't. I will never feel, okay, now I reached the level where I'm like happy. I don't think I'll ever reach there. Like, I don't have aspirations of becoming like a billionaire, but even like, obviously, the longer you work, you accumulate more and more stuff, and you hopefully get to a better and better place. But I don't think ever that I will reach a position where I'm like, I'm happy. Because there will always be this, the next level of the Super Mario game that you need to get to. And you need that, because once you reach that level of, you're just happy, well, what's the point? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to just sit at a bar every night having drinks, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a one-way ticket to an early grave, to be honest with you. For me, I always need to have a new challenge to aspire to, a new project that I want to sort of complete. I mean, it can be the death of me sometimes, and I mean that quite literally. Like, it can burn me out. So I'm aware that I need to rein that in.
Yeah.
And I think as I've got older, I've learned to control that quite a bit more, and probably become a bit more accepting of the life that I've got, and be happy with a few of the things that we've got. But I have this fear, and this, I guess this is all how we're all wired, but because I came from a household where we had a lot of money and lost it all, right? I'm now roughly the same age that actually I'm a little bit older, but I sort of feel the age my parents were.
So you're feeling history will repeat itself?
Yeah. And I'm forever worried about that. And it may sound completely nuts. Like, even when I give my card out, now I know it's always going to go through, right? But there's a bit in me that sometimes goes,
all right,
which is bizarre.
I never actually worried about money that way. Because I still feel like if, the business that I run wouldn't work out, I'm never concerned about that. I know that even if that would happen,
you'll be fine.
I'll be fine. I'll take a job, right? I go work with you guys, sell recruit, do placements. That will always be fine. So that's not a concern, but I definitely, I need to have something to chase always. And as you get older, you get better at having that, and it's funny, right? Because I know you're into fitness. You work out probably on a daily basis. I do the same, right? And as you grow older, you learn how to manage and cope with everything, right? Because when I was 23, I didn't go to the gym, and I would never go to the gym.
There were bars.
Yeah. But obviously you had more energy, so you managed to get up in the morning anyways, and in the metro, and bloody cold, and so as you grow older, hopefully you learn how to cope with this in a better way. Because the gym, right, or exercise is great, right? Because it doesn't really matter what happens at work or in your, you have issues with your family or with your wife or whatever. It doesn't really matter, because you can always just get up in the morning. Just make sure you get up and just get your clothes on. Just do that, and then just chug a cup of coffee. Just do that, and just go to the gym. Don't start to feel. Don't feel for the first 1-2 hours of the day. Don't think about anything. Don't look at your phone, because if you look on the phone, there's going to be some emergency and something is going to be urgent. Just get to the gym, right? And work out hard, like lift heavy shit, run, sweat, like do everything you got for that 1 hour. Because you know that everything else will be okay if you just do that. So once you get to the point when you learn this simple tactic, your entire life becomes different, right? Your sleep gets better, you become happier, you can manage, you don't get stressed, you can handle the stress much better. So I think that's done a lot for me, because when I started the business, I was definitely going to the gym, but not in the same extent. And I had a lot of panic attacks, a lot of health issues. When COVID came, that hurt me bad, because I cannot just sit inside. And I remembering I still force everyone to go to the office at the time. Now we have a hybrid model, because we were in the office, everything was shut down. And I just came back from Sri Lanka with one of my employees, and we came on the last flight back before they shut down the airport. And I got really sick in the office. I don't know if it was COVID or panic attacks or whatever. I couldn't breathe. I almost fell down. And one of my guys, I told one of the guys in the office, Asif, you need to drive me to the hospital. And I said, okay. And he drove me in the car. He dropped me off. And then I heard later, he went back to the office and told Gokul, one of my employees, man, do you think we'll get salary now? I think it was afraid I was going to die, right? So not because I would die, because he wouldn't get salary. But anyways, that happened, and that made me really review my health in many ways. So this was 1 year into having the business, or 6 months in, whatever. And it kind of it went from not doing anything to like, okay, excessively, like every day. And it's been like that for the next. And that's usually how you usually start with exercise. And in the first 10 days, you kind of realize all the cramps goes away. It doesn't matter what you have. Everything goes away.
Yeah.
And then you do that for 6 months, 12 months. Okay, need to dial in, sleep. And you start sleep. And obviously sleep gets that. If you exercise, you sleep well. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
Get up early. And then you start dialing in diet and what you eat. And then you start dialing in stress and, removing alcohol, at least not drink too much of it. And you start removing people or, situations in your life that's not good for you. And then you're like, man, I feel better. Maybe I should pick up a book. And, there's a lot of things that just happens that you wouldn't do before. I don't know how I got into this, but I think that's in terms of looking at ways to coping with stress and succeeding, whether you can call it succeeding in business, succeeding in life, right? I think everyone would be better off if they just went up early and went to the gym, basically, because you have so many trickle down impacts from that. So many things happen when you start doing that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I definitely was felt guilty. I think anyone that worked with me in London in the early 2000s, apologies now. I was pretty wild, and I think that was the only way I knew to cope with stress and all sorts of things that were going on in my life. It was partying. And I think one of my main reasons for leaving actually the media industry.
Yeah, was that?
I blamed the media industry. Of course, it wasn't the media industry.
No,
it was me.
I left Sweden because of that. Because my wife was in London, I was in Stockholm. I was partying, 5 days a week, and I was young, so you could still get up. You went to work, but you feel like shit.
Yeah.
And Dubai was, I mean, you have a lot of people partying here as well, but I don't see that side, man. And it feels like people who live there, they have a different relationship with alcohol than you have in Europe.
Yeah.
Because obviously you need to have the car everywhere. You don't have this off to work kind of culture.
Yeah.
I think Stockholm is very similar to what you see in London as well. Like you go on lunch and have a few pints, basically.
So I'm intrigued. What brought you to Dubai from Sweden? So it sounds like you've got a lovely life in Sweden, but you seem like you were drawn. You joined this employee, but you were drawn to doing something different. You had this region in your target.
Yeah. So there was a lot of issues I had with myself in terms of I was drawn to a lot of negative behaviors within myself. Since my wife was not there and I only saw her every other weekend, I was, living by myself. We had a beautiful home. I had a good job. I was having a great income, but I wasn't happy with my life because of the choices I made. And I knew that it was the only way for me to change was to remove the scenarios, basically. Because I didn't have it in me just to, from one day wake up and stop doing the bad stuff that made me feel bad. So I had to remove myself from the people and from the areas and everything. So I knew that. Okay, and then what? Should I move to London? No, that's not a good idea because
frying pan
is like
fire.
Yeah, that's like the same thing on steroids. Yeah. So and my wife is, we've been together for a long time. She's very cool and she's very like open to whatever, I wanted to do. So we decided we need to go somewhere. Okay, so where should we go? And Dubai, none of us had been in Dubai at that time, and this was 2000, like when we decided 2013 or 14. And we didn't have friends here, but the company I worked for, they had developers here. So I asked the owner of the company, can I go down, bring 8 people from our office? We set up a sales office in Dubai, and they can work towards Sweden. So because it was phone sales, so they can work towards Sweden, and I can start building up clients in the UAE. And it's a great thing, right? Because you get to keep, we only brought the top salespeople, you get to retain them because obviously you're going to stay at least 1 year because of the tax reasons. And, it's going to be easy to do business in UAE because we're Swedish, we're intelligent, people are stupid down there, all of that stuff. I had no idea. And he's like, that's a great idea, John. So I came down with 8 people. I'd never been here. And all of them left after 1 year back to Sweden. I stayed. And I tried like to build up a business for them right here, trying to do business development towards clients in the UAE. We got a few clients, but man, it was tough and hard. My English was really bad.
Really?
Yeah, it was a lot of things that I didn't like. I just thought I do whatever I'd done before because that's been successful. But then I realized it works a different way here. And it was very tough. It was very competitive. I didn't get inside the door. So I spent almost 2 years just trying to do business development. I remember getting meetings in Ras Al Khaimah, man. I would drive there for a sales call, 2 hours one way. And they had 2,000 dirham to spend per quarter on SEO, whatever, but I did it. And so I tried that for 3 years with this business and, it wasn't successful. I'm very grateful for they gave me that opportunity, right? Because they bankrolled everything. But then I realized that I would never kind of be able to take the next step within this business because I was the person driving it. I didn't have experience in the market, and there was all Swedish people. So then I was recruited by or one of your colleagues in the market. They reached out to me and said, "Okay, there's this agency, Chain Reaction. They're looking for a sales director. And do you want to take the interview?" And then I met Saif at Chain Reaction and had a great conversation. And that was like I think if another thing that happened in my life, if that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be here today because I needed that training. I needed those years with him to learn how is business done here? How do we deliver? And I learned tremendous amounts from him and from the business. So those 2 years, I think, was very important for me. And I used a lot of what I learned, those 2 years in my business today as well.
Sounds like you got a real fusion there from what you learned in Sweden and the hard.
So what I always say is that the 8 years I spent at, it's called Jaja Media Group, the Swedish one, they learned me sales. Man, I learned it. And I'm pretty good at sales and building sales organizations. But Chain Reaction, they taught me how to run an efficient agency and how to deliver, really good value from the kind of technical side of driving an agency. So then I felt, okay, I know how to bring business. And at that time, I'd been in the UAE for 5-6 years. I know how to deliver. I know what to do. I know what people I need, how the functions. So then I felt, okay, I have done my 10 years. I'm ready now to do this. I know what to do and how to do it. So then I told my wife that, okay, we just had our first baby, right? So it was worst time to quit my job. Yeah. So I said, we didn't have money at that time. So, maybe our savings.
It just sounds so nuts.
Yeah, we didn't have, how it is when you're you have your first baby, you're 30, you live on paycheck to paycheck because it's expensive to live, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you had time to save up lots of money. So, and she said, so how much money do we need to set the business? Because, she was into it as well. I said, I think we need $60,000. I've done some kind of budget for it. So I said, and I think we had $20,000 on it. So let me find the rest of the 40K. If I get that, I'll quit my job. And she said, okay, let's do that. So I have an uncle and he was in the oil and gas industry in London in 80s, 90s. He sold his business. So I knew he has money. And he's retired now. He's an old oil and gas guy. So we flew back to Sweden to meet him, me and my wife. And I had my dad with me as well, like his brother, right? Because he can't say no. So we went to him and I said, okay, listen. And he likes me. So I thought it was going to be easy. So I sat with him like this. Okay, I want to start my own business. I had a business plan. I need a loan of $60,000. And he looked at me like, seriously? And like, what are my guarantees? And I'm like, man, there's no guarantees, man. It's a loan. I don't know. I'll hope to pay you back. And he said, no, I need to think about this. So, and that was like a hard no, which was surprising. So we went home that day, and I told my wife that, okay, I'm not going to do it. Because we needed the money to start. We'll go back to Dubai. I keep my job, whatever, life is decent. And 2 weeks later, he called me back, and then his wife, so my aunt, had spoken to him, and he said, all right, John, we'll lend you the money, but you get $40,000, so not 60. So we kind of got the last 20K, from our credit card, whatever, I took it out in cash. And I went back to Dubai the next day and quit my job. And that money was, to get the license, pay office 1 year advance. Why did I do that? I hired people directly because I knew that I need people to grow the business. And I can't do this. So I quit my job. I needed to serve my notice. It took 1 month. And then I just started the day after, basically. We got the bank account, the license, the office. We didn't have any clients. So it was me, a guy called Ajman that I hired, and another guy called Gokul, who I hired the second. He just walked on the office with a CV. Right? Yeah, you can join. Sit there, write blogs. And then, we just caught a break. We got one good client early on. And then, I got another one. And, every month we added good clients and more people. And in 6 months, I paid this office 1 year up front, but it was like this room, right? So we had 8 desks or something. I had to break. We had to take a bigger office because I couldn't fit, right? So that's why I shouldn't have paid it up front, I guess. And then just gradually, we really organically always grown. In the beginning, it was crazy. You grow 200% or 70%, 80% the first 3 years. And it's still we do 25%, 20% growth. And it's purely organic, right? I put in this money, and the $40,000 that my uncle lent me, I paid him back in 6 months. So
amazing.
We've been running a profitable business since day one. I started taking out salary on the second month. And since then, I've always taken out good salaries. And not a single time have we not been able to pay salaries. We have never had to make people redundant. We've never been able not to pay any of our vendors. We had hard times for sure, right? That it's almost that you don't have a lot of money once everything is paid. But so far, we have been lucky enough to build a sustainable business. But you need to remember, we're only 5 years in, right? And the bigger you get, the more risk you take, because your payroll gets bigger, the office rents, all of the costs gets higher and higher. And that's why it's so important to keep growing, because you always need to add more and more and more clients to spread out the risk, basically. But we spoke about earlier, that last year we had maybe 2 clients, 50% of our revenue. We lost both of them at the same day, basically, because of course that happens. Of course it happens. You think that will never happen, but of course it happens. And kind of made us realize, okay, we need more clients. Maybe our average retainer needs to go down, but we spread out the risk, more services. So obviously, in one way, you take a higher risk as you grow because you have more costs, but you also de-risk yourself by having, I guess it depends on how you manage the business, but from a revenue standpoint, the more different clients you have, you lower the risk. And the more robust contracts you have in place. And you need to remember that every year as an agency, and probably the same thing for a recruitment business, in one way it gets easier because the equity of the brand, if you do things right, gets stronger and stronger every year.
Yeah.
And people you want them to work not with Justin, you want them to work with MCG Talent, because that means you're actually building a business that not fully relies on you. And I do the same, right? And we get a lot of clients, okay, we heard great things about Home and Performance, because we invest in awards, we invest in our brand, we invest in, obviously, our clients. So it's been definitely going up from the beginning, but definitely, I guess, challenging at something. Again, I don't know what we started talking about.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. You've sort of covered the journey and how you got out to Dubai and what led you to set up your business. So it's been super interesting. You've made it And I know it was not as easy as you just made it sound, because there's no doubt going to be several bumps on the road. But you said a couple of things which really struck me, is like you obviously you took the risk with your uncle, but you knew you needed 40,000. So you had a growth mindset in mind from the start. The fact that you had the guts to go and employ people straight away is quite staggering. You know, I mean, for example, when I set up the business, you know, really recruitment business, a laptop, a phone, a small office, and away you go. I didn't think about hiring people straight away. So you were quite bullish in your mindset.
It is, but it's a different type of business as well, right? Because you can probably do the entire function of a recruitment agency by yourself. I mean, you could do it, like, you know how to do it. But I am not a PPC specialist. I know strategy. I know, you know, how to sell it. But you wouldn't want me run your campaigns, man. I would fuck it up.
Yeah, understood.
But so and also like to grow a business, you need to be able to leverage other people's resources. Otherwise, it's impossible. Well, I knew that. And that's why Sri Lanka came in very early on as well, because I knew it was going to be very tough just to hire in Dubai as well. And I was very confident in my own ability to get business. My concern was always, how do we retain them? And I knew I needed help to retain clients. And that's why I started hiring people early on. And probably hired too fast at times as well, for sure, because we have always been very heavy in cost of our salaries. That's been like 70-60% of our revenue.
Yeah. That is high.
That is high, yeah. So we could probably have done it, we definitely could have done it at a lower cost, but would we have grown as much? Would we have retained as many clients? Because if you look at building a business as an agency, you can look at building an agency, which most people do, 10 people, keep 25% profit margin. You have a revenue of whatever. But like, if you really want to build a big business, 10% margin, 15%, that's fine. But you need to get the revenue up. And to do that, you need people, or at least resources. And like, I'm not super interested in having an agency that has 1.5, $2 million revenue, 20% profit margin. I want to reach $10 million. And I prefer having 10% out of that than 25% out of $2 million. Because for me, and it sounds very cliche, like it's about the journey, right? Not just the destination. And we spoke earlier about, you don't want to just sit down and be happy with what you have as well. I want to really see how far we can take it. And then I need to risk by delegating as much as possible. Because when you get stuck with doing all this nitty-gritty stuff of running a business, you kind of like stop looking at how can you actually grow the business, and you start working in the business.
Yeah, not on it.
Yeah. And I think that's, in the beginning, you don't have a choice, right? You need to work in the business because there's you and maybe 1-2 other people. But the more you do that, the more the clients associate you with the agency, which means that if you're not there, probably it's not going to be an agency.
Yeah.
So how can you remove yourself from the equation? Like today, we have a lot of clients that I never met. I never spoken to them. Good clients. Maybe our digital director brought them, or our head of social media, because like that's how it works now. And coming into the office today and seeing client meetings, strategy meetings with brands I've heard of, but I don't know anyone there. And that's the best feeling I have right now, because it means that, okay, we've actually been able to build something that doesn't rely on me. And if I remove myself completely, maybe not now, but in 2-3 years, I'm pretty sure that Homo Performance still has a bright future. And that, then you leave something, right, for the grave, basically.
Then you've got a business, an asset that you can potentially,
of course, like
sell, etc.
You can sell it. You can just, you can earn income from it.
Yeah, you can go to Sri Lanka more often.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, why you want to have your own business, because I don't know about you, but for me, it's like life is a bit of an adventure, right? And I don't really look at work as work. And I didn't, to be honest, when I was employed, it was the same, right? But I always felt when I was employed, I was looking at, the CEO of the company was traveling, he was doing that, he was in control of how his life was going to be in a sense. And I was always envying of that. And that's a feeling I really love as running my own business. If I want to go to Sri Lanka next week, I'll go there.
Yeah.
And I work with the team there. We want to start in Saudi, let's do it. You want to set up a hub in Lebanon, why not? Like, that's maybe not Lebanon now, but maybe in the future. You really set your own conditions.
Well, your story is really, you've had an agenda and you've done everything you can to get there, whether it's doing it yourself or convincing other people. And that's probably in the sales skills, convincing your previous employer, who may not have even thought about moving to Dubai. Not only did you get them to take you there, but 8 people as well.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
So that's, when you've got something in your mind and you're locked in, you do it. But you also had the foresight, and I resonated a lot with this from what you said. After 10 years of working in the different environments, you felt you had the skill sets to go for it yourself, And I remember feeling exactly like that as well before I set my business up, was that I felt the time is right. I'd learned, my skin had toughened up a bit, and I felt I was up for it and ready. It obviously, once you embark on that journey, it's nothing like you imagined it, and it's way more difficult. You've glossed over a couple of things which I'd just like to touch on, if that's all right. Just first one is, you set up in 2019.
Yeah, September 2019.
September 2019. So we all know,
worst time.
We all know something was just around the corner then. But I suppose in it, looking back with this in foresight, with hindsight, that might have been the making of your business as well. So tell us about how you handled COVID.
Yeah, so I think that was like 5 months in, 5-6 months in, right? So at that time, man, listen, we didn't have much to lose. Like, we had, at that time, 6 people, an office this size, right? And maybe 10, 15 clients. So when COVID happened, everyone, as you know, was like, it was a lot of uncertainty. But from a business point of view, yes, we did have 1 or 2 clients that pulled all of their spend directly because of, they didn't know what's going to happen. Some of them we kept working with free of charge, to be honest, because we had the time. Some of those actions led to, that these people, they had other businesses that they gave to us because they felt we were doing them a solid, right? And I think it was at 1-2 months when COVID really, there was lockdown, and there was a lot of uncertainty in our business, any business. But after that, it kind of really hockey sticked. That's where we had our biggest growth rate, because for us as a business, we had the benefit that we didn't have a lot of overheads. So we didn't need to save. There was nothing to save. And we were offering a very high quality service at a very competitive price. So a lot of advertisers that were looking for cost cutting, they came to us because we were still in Dubai, we were still operating, and we had the time and resources. And for them, they were saving money. For us, it was great. So we won a lot of business during that time because of that. So it kind of, for us, it was a catalyst for growth, definitely. The only difference is we worked from home and all of that. But as a business, it wasn't it was challenging because we were growing very fast. But we didn't have the same challenges as other businesses had that had to lay off people, or they lost all their revenues overnight. So that wasn't one of the big challenges for us as for me as in running the business. For me, it's been more about, the challenges you don't know before you know it. Like, how do you get payments? Do you get paid? They should pay it sometime, right? That's been a learning curve for sure. And how do you manage your cash flow effectively? Losing big clients, losing talent, because we had we really had a lot of amazing talent in the agency. People that today, have worked for really big brands. They work for big agencies, high roles, and we have acted as a stepping stone, because we offer them jobs where no one else would, right? But they definitely pay the price because they came, they did their time, add a lot of value, and left for something better, which I kind of salute, right? That's a win-win in many ways. So that's been a really big challenge to how do you build a business that can be competitive enough to offer high, good salaries? How do you get the the great people to stay, because it's really about having great people, right? It's not about having a lot of people. It's about having the great people. And if you have those and you get them to stay, you will grow your business, especially in an agency. It's so people-centric. And that's when you start looking into, okay, what functions can we have in Sri Lanka? And how can we be competitive in Sri Lanka? Because Sri Lanka, well, you need the best people there. So it's not just, we have it in Sri Lanka, you get the best people. You still need to be competitive. How is the work culture? How do you pay your employees? How do you promote people? How do you grow people? How do you get freedom? How do you, all of that flexibility, benefits, where we really invest a lot in terms of that. How do you get people to really feel the same values that I do in terms of where this business is going? That's hard as well. As you grow.
Absolutely. I'm just intrigued. At what point in the business? So today you've got offices in Dubai, Riyadh, and Colombo, right?
Yeah, I mean, our office in Riyadh is a business center. We have one person. But
yeah. Well, you got a license there.
Yeah, I have the pin on the map.
Yeah, there you go. So at what point, you had 10, 15 people in Dubai. COVID happens. You hockey stick after a couple of months. Hockey stick. You start going through growth. At what point did you decide that your business needed essentially an offshore outfit to support Dubai?
That happened before. So I started the business in Dubai in September 2019. I got my license in Sri Lanka in December 2019.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So that was 2-3 months after I started the business.
That's very forward thinking.
Because I was going all into this, right? So, and we, at that time, I think I had 3 or 4 people in Dubai, and I wanted to hire more, but I couldn't afford to hire more. That was a simple fact, right? So how do I grow? How do I hire more people? Because I didn't want to outsource. How do I hire more people quickly with low budget? Okay, I need to set up a business in another country. So most people said to go to India. I've never been to India. I guess I'm sure it's a beautiful country, but I wasn't keen on going there. And I had a trip planned to Sri Lanka by myself without the family. I was going to Angel Beach.
Okay.
But they just opened up. Yeah. So then I was at a dinner party here in Dubai. One of my friends, he had some friends working in Spree, which was an e-commerce at that time, kids clothing. I think they're bankrupt now. And they had a development office in Sri Lanka. So he said, you should look at Sri Lanka. So the same night I went home, I Googled set up business Sri Lanka. I found a dodgy PRO company, Colombo. I filled in the form. He called me the next day. We agreed on the price, $1,000. Okay, that sounds great. And then I went like a week after, and I came to Colombo. I'd never been to Sri Lanka at that time. So I went.
Oh, wow.
That was the first time. I didn't know anything. I came there. And this guy had set up meetings. So we went to the registry to get, the big stamp and everything, sign papers. We go to the bank, sign paper. It was very easy to set up business there. Like it took 1 day.
Yeah.
That's super easy and very cheap. And then, okay, I need people. So I blasted LinkedIn. I need to recruit people. I hired like a meeting room in one of the co-working spaces, and I had like 20 interviews on Monday. All of this happened the first day. And I'm like, this is going to be so easy, right? I'm a great salesman. Like I can sell this. I'm going to hire everyone, right? Because obviously who doesn't want to work for me? Right? I come with dollars. And then I realized that I knew nothing about Sri Lanka, man. And Sri Lankans are so different from what I expected in a very positive way. But we're having interviews, but it felt like, no one really believed me. Like they were like, who are you? Like, why should we work for you? And I thought it was going to be the opposite. So I had 20 interviews. I ended up hiring the only 2 people who wanted to work with me. So it was a designer and a developer. And then we went to find like an office space. And yeah, it started with those 2 people. And we added a few people the first year. It wasn't successful because I was here because of COVID. I couldn't travel. There was no one to run the team, but we had a team there with 4 people. And I think I told you what happened later is that one of our clients here, Tavola, which sells kitchenware, they had an e-commerce manager, Ajman, who was our POC on the client side. He's Sri Lankan. He was like, John, I'm going to move back to Sri Lanka. This is the new POC. And I said, okay, this is the amazing opportunity. We have a guy who's been in Dubai for 5-10 years. He's an e-commerce manager. He's well respected. He's senior. He is the person that can probably take us from where we were to where I want us to be in Sri Lanka. So he joined us as our country director. And I think like Ajman, who's the name of him, I think, and he's still with us. If he would have, joined us, we wouldn't be where we are today. Like they have built our business, because if we didn't have that Sri Lankan office functional, supporting the team here, my business would I'm not even sure if it would exist today. So these small events in life, right? You meet a person and you just take the chance of hiring him or her or whatever not, but they end up, changing everything. And it shows how important people are in changing the trajectory of our business. Because if he wouldn't have been here, running that team, getting the talent, getting the culture right, creating an attractive employer in Sri Lanka, we wouldn't be able to attract the best people in Sri Lanka. We wouldn't be able to deliver top-notch services to Dubai. Man, we have most of the client servicing is done from Dubai, but we have clients, some of them big global brands, that are fully operated by Sri Lanka members of our team, right? Look at that. Okay, obviously, we have a cost base of Sri Lanka. You have revenue in Dubai. When you get that to really work,
amazing.
It's amazing. And it doesn't always work, right? But to be honest, it doesn't always work when you put a person in Dubai handing a client to Dubai as well. It's just different types of challenges.
Yeah.
So that's when he came in, and that's really kind of propelled now. So they are equally sized, our team. I think we're 15 in Dubai, we're 15 in Sri Lanka. We have 3 people in Lebanon. We have 1 in Saudi and 1 in South Africa. But I feel that our Sri Lankan office is more professional than our Dubai office.
Wow.
Because I run this office and I'm not that professional. And Ajman runs the office there. Like it's biometrics in the office, man. It's
amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, that's a really,
what a great story.
And it's when you realize that, you employ people and you are not longer like the smartest guy in the room, that's a pretty nice feeling. Yeah. And when I need to ask people, like, how does this work? How do you do that? And what do you think? And how should we do this? And you kind of remove yourself from decision making, because you realize, man, my decisions will not be as efficient as yours. So then my role becomes more like, okay, this is the vision. This is where we need to go. How do we get there? And just keeping the eye on the prize always, and every day, every morning, making sure people stay motivated. I don't like when everything is urgent, but there should be some kind of urgency to things always. Because listen, there's 1,000 agencies in Dubai. The client, they don't care if we had a rough day, right? They don't care what is happening internally. We need to get it done always. Because if we don't get it done, we're going to lose this business, and someone else will pick it up straight away. And we charge clients quite a lot to offer the service. So we need to really make it worth for them, basically. So I think that's the balance, like driving with urgency, with vision, but with a lot of support, keeping people engaged, keeping people happy, and also making people realize, mistakes will happen. They're fine. Don't worry about it. There shouldn't be any kind of fear in a workspace. You see that a lot here in UAE, right? A lot of terrible leaders, a lot of terrible managers leading with, fear, with fear of loss always. Like, if you don't do this, you're not going to have a job tomorrow. And kind of mind blowing. You realize it doesn't require a lot to be leading with example. Sometimes just do, lead with common sense, basically.
That sounds, I mean, honestly, because I've obviously got business in Asia, and I've got an offshore hub in Sri Lanka, and I've always learned, I've had success and failure. So when I opened up a business in London, it failed because I didn't have the right person running it. I mean, having that person, we have a successful business in Asia because Adam's there, right? We have a successful business in Sri Lanka because Charitha's there, right? Yeah. And having those hubs out there where you've got people that can run it, they're respected, the people gravitate towards. People don't underestimate how important how important that is.
Setting up a business, getting a license, man, anyone can do that.
Anyone can.
You just go there, you pay, you get it. But operating it, and obviously you cannot be everywhere at the same time, right? So you need people who can make that happen. And when you find them, like, it's make sure to keep them.
Yeah.
Or at least do everything you can, because you cannot control that.
Yeah.
But and you will lose some of them at times, which is fine. But at least do what you can to retain them as long as possible, which is very difficult sometimes, because when you have 35 people, you need to look at everything. You cannot just look at this one guy or one girl.
Absolutely. Now, something I just want to pick up on, because obviously what we do in this podcast is we talk about, the person beyond the business guy. And you've touched on the fact that you've been in a steady relationship for a long time, right? Like me, I don't think I'd have been able to do half the things that I've done in business as a business owner without having a solid anchor at home. How important has that been for you?
It's been important. I think, like, in the sense that we have two incomes. If you look at that, I wouldn't be able to quit my job when we had the first baby if I didn't have a wife who could provide for us at that moment. I mean, that's the honest truth. And she's been very supportive in the sense that when I wanted to do this thing, she's never said, you shouldn't do it. Have you thought about this? She gets me. So I think she understands as well that I need to do the things I do. Otherwise I would be unhappy. And obviously that's not good for her, for me, or for anyone. So she's been 100% supportive in everything that I've done from the business point of view. Not everything I've done, but from the business point of view. So that has definitely meant a lot. And people underestimate this, right? In terms of, because starting a business, what it comes down, there's a lot of people who want to start a business. You meet them every day. Oh, I want to have my own agency. I want to have my own recruitment company. And they would probably be great at it, but they don't do it. And one of the reasons why people end up not doing it is because obviously fear of loss and fearing that what happens if I don't get clients? How will I pay the bills? Being in a relationship where you actually are lucky enough to have two incomes reduces that risk a lot. So it's boring to say it's a financial factor, but it ends up being, right? Because you need to make sure you pay the bills. And I'm not sure that would I have done it if it was just me. I probably would have earlier, but I'm not sure if it would have been successful. So,
okay. And do you think, I suppose, does it help give you a purpose though for what you want to do? Like I think, for example, just with me, a big part of that serves me, that gets you through the shit times, right? Yeah. And my God, you have a lot of them running a business, and and in a recruitment business, for whatever reason, I analyze things monthly, which is something I should never do, because actually quarterly is what's important, and things always end up all right. But I feel that even in the rubbish times, my purpose, a lot of it's driven, is I want to provide for my family to have a lovely life, and I've got that always in the back of my mind. That's given me my purpose.
So I guess that's that drives your motivation, right? And the reason why you do the things you do. I definitely feel like I'm getting a lot of back from my family in the sense of putting things in perspective. Like, whatever happens in the office, right? Then I go and pick up my daughter at school, and she talks about something that makes completely no sense, right? And it kind of puts things in perspective, right? And so it definitely helps on that aspect. That in terms of my purpose for driving my business, it's always been this fire within me that is driving that. I think having wife, kids, family, that puts, everything in context. And I don't think it would be as enjoyable if you didn't have that, because it would all be work. Yeah. And you've done that, right? When you're 25, 27. And then what happens? You start looking at distractions. But having a family, having kids, having a wife, that's your distraction, right? That's what you go home to in a way. So it means that you don't need to look elsewhere. You got your cover. And you don't really have time for much more. Like, you have time for, you get the exercise, you work, and then you spend time at home. And I think I wouldn't want to see it. And I don't feel I miss out on anything, to be honest. I don't miss going to brunches. No. Or going out. Man, I don't even go out to dinners anymore if it's later than 7 p.m. I need to be in bed at night. And and my wife is the same, right? So sometimes you have people, let's go out for dinner. And they say 9 p.m. And we're like, 9 p.m? Man, who goes out at that time? Yeah, we're kind of boring now, I think.
So what sacrifices do you think, aside from not going out late at night, do you think you've made in order to build the life that you've got?
Definitely relationships with friends. Yeah. So I've always been a very social person with a big network of close friends. when I left Sweden, I left that intentionally, right? And I do have friends here in Dubai, but man, it's 2 maybe.
Yeah.
And I definitely sacrifice that. Like, and I can miss it. I can miss that social part of me. But you have trade-offs in life, right? You need to decide who do I want to be, and you become the person kind of as an average of the people you interact with. So that is a massive trade-off. I can recall the times, okay, it was a fun time, but it's like when you're in situations with people and the only thing you talk about are things you did 10 years ago. Okay, it's time to change the environment, because you need to start talking about what's going to happen in the future. So that's the biggest kind of trade-off, I guess, in running the life that I'm having right now. But I wouldn't want to change it for anything.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same, actually. I think where do you find time to do, to go around and have a big group of friends, as well as being the boss, running a big boss with multiple different regions, being a dad, being a husband. I mean, you're only one person, right? It's impossible. But okay, so I'd like to sort of end this by understanding what your vision is, where you'd like things to go for Home of Performance.
All right. So I think the vision for the business is to take it up to $10 million in annual recurring revenue, which is doable. To have a business and there's two ways that this is going to end. There's 3 ways this is going to end for me. Either we reach $10 million with the profit we want to maintain, and I remove myself from the business, and I can make money from it, and I start my next business. And I think it's going to take probably 3-4 years. The second scenario is I reach this point and I sell the business and I start my new business. The third scenario is we go bankrupt, right? Because and that is a possibility, because I'm not gonna, let's say, lower my risk appetite just to avoid bankruptcy, because the win for me, it's worth the risk trying to aim for that target. And I'm happy with that. Like, I'm happy with, okay, it might not work out, but I want to swing for it. So I'm going to take risks trying to achieve that. So these are the 3 different outcomes that I'm aiming. I mean, I'm not aiming to go bankrupt, obviously. It's a possibility.
But you said something interesting to me off camera, and I think it's really important people hear that, is that you're not afraid.
No, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of losing the business. I'm not afraid of losing a client. And obviously you lose clients all the time, like in any agency. And Donald Draper says it in the first episode of Mad Men, like the day you start signing accounts is the day you start losing accounts. And I had, like, obviously I have a lot of conversations with my team about it as well, because if they are handling an account, they resign. Obviously there's a lot of guilt in that as well. And I always liked it. Don't worry about it. It's just an account. We get a new one. Obviously trying to understand what happened on that, but sometimes you cannot understand it. It just happens. And no, like that losing the business, I know it's a possibility, as in any business. I'm not afraid of it. I don't lose sleep over it. When we have a bad month, which we have sometimes where we make losses, I don't feel bad about it. We'll just figure out how to turn it around for the next month. And any business is really about one thing, and that is sales. That's it. Like, if everything else is like fixable, just get clients, just get revenue. You can change processes, you can hire resources, you can lower costs, increase costs, add more services. All of that is like, that's pretty easy stuff, right? Just figure out how to get clients. And if you get that, you shouldn't worry really about anything else, because the rest, I hire good, smart people to take care of the rest of the business. And I know that we will never be in a position where we stop selling. I mean, I think we're probably one of in our size of a business as an agency, I don't think there's anyone that has as efficient kind of sales setup as we do, in terms of getting leads, qualifying leads, going through pitch process, how we build the pitches, how we present commercials, how we follow up, how we onboard. I don't think anyone is as efficient as we are in our size. And as long as we are well attuned on that, there's a very low risk that we would like stop growing.
And if anyone sort of wants to follow you, join your agency, understand your story, is LinkedIn the best place to reach out for you?
Yeah, definitely. LinkedIn, connect, or follow our page. We have a lot of vacancies, so if people are looking to join an agency, please reach out.
There you go. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you so
likewise.
much. Cheers now.